Let's paint this watercolour posy of flowers together. First off, you can see that I'm just mixing up a light wash that I'm going to use to put a light layer of colour over all of the painting. This is the part that for me feels most like the colouring in section of watercolour. We're just working to get a light layer down that I can build up in the places that I want to, but it's still nice and translucent and keeps the lightness in the painting. So I'm working away here on adding a light layer of blue to some muscari. I decided when I was looking for inspiration to paint something today, I decided to go into my garden and see what I could find growing. And all of the flowers that I've sketched here today are growing in my garden at the moment. We've recently moved house, so I'm not sort of used to the garden yet. I don't know the ins and outs of it, and this is our first spring summer season here, so it's nice to see what's coming up in the garden, and it's nice to stop and appreciate that before I start throwing myself into garden renovations and getting everything that I want growing. So this is my little tribute to the garden as it is right now, and just painting some Aquilegia there, getting that light layer down so that we have a base to work on. You can see that I'm always checking what colour is on the brush with the paper before I go to add anything to the page. This is just to make sure that the tone is always the same, and also to make sure that I don't go and splosh a darker layer of colour on by accident. Watercolour is perfect for layering. It lends itself so much to that technique, and it's my favourite way of working with watercolours. So if anyone was to ask me what's your number one tip or secret to watercolours, my answer is always layers, because you can keep going and going and adding detail until you are satisfied, and I love it for that. So here we're just adding in a little bit of colour to the violet that I'd picked. I love it when the darker colours start to come through and you can see the piece starting to take shape. So I'm just getting in a slightly darker tone because that is going to be very deep and rich when it's finished. So now we're starting on our second layer. So I've kind of jumped up across the page and covered everything with its initial layer. And I'm going back in now and starting to add some depth. So I'm looking for anywhere that the piece needs detail, shadows, a denser version of the colour. So for example, on this muscari, I'm adding in the darker blue anywhere where the blue is more vivid and shadowy. And I'm leaving alone anywhere that the light is hitting or that is a mid-tone. So I'm just starting to build up a bit more depth. I'm also, as I go along, I'm looking for areas that might need another colour layering over the top. So the top of the muscari have that little green tip. Rather than just doing a green tip and a blue middle, I've done all of it blue, and then I added a little wash of green so that it's very subtle and it just blends straight through. And this is what I'm talking about with the layering. It really adds to the piece because you get that depth. You don't have a green bit and a blue bit. So we're going along now. I've got some bluebells. I'm just adding again. I'm looking for where the light is hitting and trying to fill in the shaded areas with a darker version. I don't tend to use much black or grey in my work. I find it more satisfying to use a darker version of the colour that I've started with and then layer that up, and if it needs to look more shadowy, I will pull out maybe a brown, maybe a grey blue, or the very weakest little bit of black. But I try not to go in with a solid black or grey because I think it can be very harsh and it definitely will muddy the colours in your piece. Whether that's something that you want, that's, totally up to you as a creative choice. I wanted to keep this piece quite vibrant and light, so I just wanted the depth to come in terms of colour rather than in terms of darkness. Oh, look at that. So this is the third layer, and I'm just looking now for anywhere that needs that little lift. It's not bright enough, it's not vivid enough. Watercolour tends to dry about 20% lighter and paler than it looks when it's wet. So sometimes when you come back to the colour, you'll think, oh, it's not quite as satisfying as I was hoping. So here I've just taken a slightly more pure version of the colour. It's not as watered down. It's not shaded or muddied or anything. It's just quite a pure, bright version. And I've just laid a wash over the top, and it just stings and lifts that colour straight out, and it's gorgeous. So onto layer 3 with the mascara. I'm going again with any details in the depths that need pulling out. And it can sometimes look a little bit funny at this point. It's easy to add a darker layer and then think, oh, it's too chunky, it's too harsh. But what you're doing is you just weaken a little bit of water, blend it through, and it very quickly settles and calms down. Watercolour is a really forgiving medium, so it's a perfect one to play with. So now I'm just adding in my ribbon. I couldn't decide what colour to do this, so I ended up going for a blue just to kind of complement the bouquet. So I'm just popping my base layer of the blue down now, and then adding in that second layer, creating depth and a little bit of texture there as well. And this is what I'm talking about initially. That does look quite a harsh line, you can see. So it's about getting that little bit of colour and depth on there, and then you come back in and blend with a clean brush, and you can blend it as little or as much as you like. So now my favourite layer, I'm adding the highlights. This is Dr. P.H. Martin's Bleed Proof White. It's an opaque consistency, unlike watercolour, and it is absolutely perfect for adding any highlights to your piece. It's one of my favourite tools. It will lift the piece right up off the page if you use it to just create those perfect highlights. So what I did there was just mixed it with a tiny bit of brown or cream or something just to soften the colour, because we don't want it to look like bright white. We want it to look like a soft natural white. And then anywhere that I'm adding the highlight, like here, I will have added a tiny bit of yellow just so that it's not sitting too harshly on the page. You look for anywhere that needs that highlight, drop it on, and then do the same thing with that little bit of blending to just smooth it all over. And what a beautiful finish. I hope you enjoyed painting with me. Like and follow for more videos.